Hey poker people, this is Sky with Smart Poker Study. You're about to watch a webinar preview for my webinar called Effective HUD Use. I held it back on March 30th to a live online, not an in-studio audience, but an online audience. So with this preview, I'm going to start by showing you a mind map. Now that's a visual representation of everything you're going to learn in the webinar. And then I've taken a few choice slides from the webinar, and I'm going to teach you some stuff about utilizing HUDs and gaining information about your opponents from the statistics in the HUD. Let's do it. Alrighty, here's the mind map for the Effective HUD Use webinar. First, with this webinar, I am helping you plug the leak of I lose money when I fail to use my HUD properly to exploit opponents. So how do you know if this webinar is right for you? Well, you want to exploit your opponents to the max. Your HUD's just a jumble of numbers for you. Maybe you often review hands and you realize after the fact that you missed out on some stats, or maybe you simply don't feel confident with your HUD. The first thing I'm going to teach you is how to learn your HUD. I'm going to teach you 7 different factors that you need to know about every single HUD, because it's critical that you learn as much as you can about each statistic so you can utilize it to exploit your opponents. I'm going to give you quite a few different in-game practices and as well as off-the-felt ways to practice your HUD use right here. And then, this is the best part of the webinar, I'm going to give you 5 different exploit HUDs. Now, these are specific HUDs that promote stat usage and promote specific exploits on your opponents. So there are the 5 different exploits HUDs I'm giving you. Afterwards, we do a little Q&A, and because this webinar was already recorded, we got quite a few good questions, and you're going to learn from those as well. And ultimately, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in the slides, we've got crazy bonuses for you with this webinar. All right, so this first slide is about whether or not to 3-bet bluff. Now, look at the situation right here. You're dealt ace-3 suited in the small blind. You don't know anything about villain. He min-raised on the button in a 3-way hand, and he has 40 big blinds to his stack. You like ace-3 suited for making 3-bet bluffs. So what do you do here? Do you fold, call, or 3-bet bluff? Pause the video if you need a little time, but here's my answer. I am going to make the call. Why is that? Well, I'm going to just call because I'm not sure what he's capable of. Remember, we said he is an unknown villain. We don't know how often he 3-bets. We don't know exactly what a min raise means from the button from this player, right? So we're not sure what he's capable of. He's also in position, and he's a short stack. So there's some potential here. If I bloat the pot with a 3-bet and he calls, that stack is going to be so big, he may feel pretty darn committed on the flop, making it hard for me to bluff if I whiff my ace or if I don't hit my flush, which that's highly likely. Alrighty, the next slide, 3-bet bluff again, but this time you can see there is a HUD on the table with Keeper 63's numbers. So Keeper 63, we have 2,000 hands on him. He's a 37/4 player, which means he is super loose passive. Also, 0 3-bets means any raises that he makes is often a form of strength. Once again, you still like the ace-3 suited for 3-bet bluffs, but his fold to 3-bet is a measly 0%. So now what do you do? Fold, call, or 3-bet bluff? Go ahead and pause the video if you need. Think about your answer, but here's mine. It's going to kind of depend on the situation that I'm in, how long I've been playing at this table with this player now. But my decision is to fold or call. I am not going to 3-bet bluff here. Now, why is that? I'm going to fold to just avoid a bad situation. If he is open raising any aces, it's ace-king or ace-queen. If I 3-bet and he calls, we both flop an ace, I'm losing a ton of money. The only ace I like to see on the flop is an ace-3 for a 2-pair hand without a king or a queen, right? Other than that, I'm in a pretty dangerous situation because he's going to outkick me quite often there. Now, I could also choose to just call to flush mine or to straight mine. If you know what the 20x rule is for implied odds, that means you need to have 20 times the bet size in the stacks behind in order to make it profitable to play these kinds of speculative hands. And, you know, if I'm calling 15 cents, means we need $3 behind. Bam! After this bet, he has 384. I can call to just play some implied odds and try to catch a really strong hand on the flop. So those are my answers. Next slide. So this is the question that I give everybody to ask themselves before every decision in online poker when you're utilizing your HUD. Here's the question. How often do they blank? This is going to force you to look at the HUD to try to find some kind of statistic, some kind of information there to help you answer that question. Here's an example question. How often do they play a hand? Well, 13% of the time. You can see that VPIP right there at 13. That is the same as 13 out of 100 opportunities, which means overall they're folding. They're only playing 13%, which means they're folding 87% of the time. How often do they fold to a steal? Well, that's that green F88 number right there. So they fold 88% or 88 out of 100. You should feel pretty comfortable when stealing against this player. Now, how often do they 3-bet? You can see it right down there. 3B3 means they 3-bet 3% or 3 out of 100. So if this player 3-bets you, you should give that 3-bet quite a bit of respect. How often do they c-bet the flop? Well, that's pretty obvious. You see that CB86, they c-bet the flop 86% and the turn 50% right there, which means they're pretty turn honest. They c-bet a ton on the flop, but then they are a little bit more choosy when they double barrel. And the last question, how often do they call 2-bets? Well, you might not know from this smart HUD right here, but their call 2-bet percentage is right down here next to 3-bet. This whole section tells you how they respond, in general, how they respond to somebody's open raise. It's only 9% or 9 out of 100, which means they probably only call with pairs, broadways, and some decent suited connectors. And overall, we can see that this player is a 13/9. And with all the other stats, they're your standard tight aggressive player. Alrighty, so in the webinar, I'm going to teach you 7 factors for each stat. The 5th factor is your own stat percentage. So you want to ask yourself these questions about your own statistic, whichever one you're focused on that week. Now, you want to write your answers in your poker journal, whether that's an electronic like Word or Evernote document or a physical journal on your desk. So here's an example. My small blind raise for sin is 37%. So that first question, what does this percentage say about me? It says that I sure like raising when it's folded to me in the small blind. Question 2, how can my opponents exploit this? Well, they exploit me by calling wide and playing in position, or 3-bet bluffing frequently. And last question, what can I do to bring my stat closer to a quote-unquote good percentage? Well, I can lower this by opening wide against players who fold a lot versus small blind raises, maybe at 60% or more. I can also open raise less when the big blind hates folding, maybe when their fold to steal in the big blind is 40% or less. Alrighty, here is one of the action steps that I give to everybody within the webinar. For every other session over the next 30 study sessions, fill out the 7 factors for 1 stat at a time in your poker journal. Choose a stat from the Exploit HUD that you plan on playing with. Don't skimp on the studies. The more you learn about each stat, the more effective you'll be at using them to exploit your opponents. Alrighty, and here is one HUD example. This is the preflop calling HUD, and these are some examples on how we would exploit these various percentages that we see. So you see red pie is at the top. Expect a call more often than not from this loose passive player, because he's a 50/6. Look at how often he's calling by position. Now, he uses the button for his 3-bet bluffs, so be prepared for that. Harry right here, he's a pretty honest 3-better, especially in the cutoff. Look at how small it is in every position, and the cutoff's only 1%. You want to expect big blind calls versus any open raise that you make at 37%. And you want to ask yourself, does he fold to flop c-bets? So you might need to use a pop-up to figure that one out. Now Joe at the end here, he's a loose aggressive at 35/26, as you can see. He uses the big blind for 3-bet bluffs instead of calls. So expect this when you're open raising against him, probably when you're open raising as a steal in the cutoff, big blind, and small blind. All right, check out all these bonuses that come with the Effective HUD Use Webinar. There are 22 of them, including those 10 exploit HUDs, 2 additional tutorial videos, and all that other stuff. This is a value-packed webinar for sure. So if you'd like to make your purchase, if you're watching it on Gumroad, simply click the purchase button below and you'll have access to everything. If you're watching on YouTube, click the link in the description to go to the Gumroad page. And there's the link right there for you. Thank you very much for watching this webinar preview. If you learned some things about using your HUD, just wait until you watch the full 75-minute webinar. If you've got any questions before purchasing, send them my way to sky@smartpokerstudy.com. You can also click either one of these video links for more webinar goodness.